Hey there folks, so we have a top-down character that's moving in the 4 different directions. We've gone through our ZD source and set up a multi-directional sequence now. Let's have a look at how we can actually start applying this onto our character and using the directional values of our character to determine which animation should be used. Now I've already filled in a couple of the gaps to get us to this point, because obviously I'm jumping around with different examples. What you can see here is that my top-down character, I've changed it from the warrior to the hero just for this example. That means that I've just basically changed the sprite for the demoing here. I've updated my sprites scale a little bit so that it's matching up with the capsule. I've changed the spring arm just so it's a little bit more zoomed out, and I've also just slowed down the max walk speed. We'll come back to things like max walk speed and jumps and everything like that in a future video to look at good movement component values, but for now I've just got it so it's slowed down and put a new animation blueprint together for this character. So at least I can see the character, they walk around, and we've got what we had before where they're playing, they're moving in the 4 directions, but it's this character now that we see. And you can see if I just press F8, you can see that's where they are in the world. There you go. So they're just being put into the world with that camera looking down at them. So what else have I got? Well, I've got this animation blueprint that I've created for that character. And if I go and have a look in the hero folder, you can see we have the source, but I've also gone in and gone with a paper ZD animation blueprint and used that ZD source for the hero. Now in here, I've just done very simple stuff. I've got a reference to the owning actor. The owning actor is the one that has this animation component attached to it. So obviously this is going to be our ZD character, the top down one. Saved a reference to the character and also saved a reference to their movement component, just in case I want anything such as, you know, their walk speed or any values that are contained in the movement component itself. On tick, I'm just using this as our update, and I've got a validated get here, so this is just a case of dragging in this, right clicking it and making it a validated get. So it's like plugging it into an isValid node, and I'm just using this so I can basically say let's get references, let's get things from our specific character, but only if this has succeeded and we've got a reference to them, just in case the tick runs a couple of frames before this. Okay, so what do we need to do now? Well, if I go into the anim graph, you see I have got a state machine. I've right clicked, created a new state machine, but there's nothing in here yet. So what we'll do is we'll start off by creating ourselves an animation state. And this one, I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to rename it as idle. And we need another animation state. So I'm just going to drag off of this one and create a new one. And this one is going to be our walk, run, whatever we've got there for movement. And as usual, walking, we also need to be able to go back to our idle. So we want to be able to speed up and start moving and slow down and stop. Now, the transition rules are pretty easy. We need to be able to get the character's speed. So let's go back to the event graph, and off of our character, we can get their velocity. That one is just type in velocity and probably scroll all the way down to the bottom and get velocity. And this one will promote, and we'll just gain it as a velocity. Now this is something you might want to use. You might want to be able to say, okay, well, let's use this velocity to work out which direction my character's going in. I could actually take this as an X, Y, and Z, split it up, and just say, well, give me how much I'm moving on the X value, or the Y value, or the Z value. Probably not in the Z value in a top-down game. Now, off of this, I can also get our vector length, and I'm going to do this one as our XY because we're moving on the ground, we're not moving up or down, and we'll use this one as our speed. Okay, let's plug that in so we can make sure that it's definitely being defined, and that's going to now allow us to start determining whether we are walking, running, or jumping, so on, you know, what speed are we going at with it, and starting to get those values. So idle, let's go in here first, and from this one we're going to type in idle. And you'll notice we have one sequence, even though we have the up, down, left and right in there. And even though it's a multi-directional sequence, we only have the one animation. So it's a looping animation and it's playing that sequence. Nothing here indicates that this is a multi-directional sequence, so just keep that in mind. And then what we'll do is we'll go to our walking. And again, we'll look for walk. I've saved it as walk, but obviously it could be run, it could be jog, whatever you've got it named as. And that's going to play that animation. So what makes us go from idle to walking? Well, that's nice and easy. Let's just say that speed is greater than 0. Let's just keep it at that for now. What about if we are not? If we're going from walking to idle, well, that's just going to be simple as well. Let's say that if our speed is, let's go with equal to 0, but we can always do less than equal to if we're worried. I'm going to go with equal to 0 there. And let's just go and test that out. So hopefully now my character's gone into here, and as they move, so this is A, D, W, S. Perfect. So my character's actually animating. But what we'll notice is that when it enters into the multi-directional sequence, so we're just going to have a look at this multi-directional sequence here. When it enters into the idle, what it's doing is it's looking at this list of sequences here and making a determination of which one it should use. Well, nothing's telling it which one of these 4 quadrants to use. So what it's doing is it's defaulting to 0, and the default 0 one here is obviously the top one, hence why it goes to the top. So what we've got here is a couple of options. How do we add this in? Do we do it based on the velocity and the movement of our character, and which direction they're moving in is going to determine which one of these? Do we do it from the inputs of the player? So whichever keys we're pressing can be used, and we can use the vector 2D of our input to do that. Or could we go even more advanced and say maybe we find out where the cursor is looking, and we could do maybe line traces from our cursor and the camera looking down and saying, okay, well, if this is where the target that the cursor is positioned on the screen, and where this is in relation to our character, could we get them to turn in a direction that faces that? So even though we're pressing to move to the left, maybe they face to the right because they're facing towards where the cursor is. So there's lots of different options there. I'm going to show you the directionality option, and I'm going to show you the input key option for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go first of all, and we're going to have a look in our character. So this is our top-down character, and what you'll see is we've got this add movement input, and we've got this vector 2D that we're using for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take in the action value, and I'm just going to promote this to our value here. We'll go with move direction, and we'll just put that at the end. Now, one of the things that we can do with this is obviously use this to work out whether we are moving up, down, left or right, and just saving it in our character. Now you can get the value inside of here. So for example, getting IA top down, you can see I can get this as an output, and I can use this in other places, even taking it and breaking it in other places. So this is great if you want to do some functionality inside of the character and you just want to know what this input is without having to save it. But for now, I'm just going to save it into this variable, because that means that when I go into my ZD source top-down hero, sorry, the animation blueprint version, I can actually get that and get move direction, and I can promote that to a variable in here. So maybe put this on a new line with a sequence, but for now this will be working nicely for me, and that gives me what direction I am moving in. So sorry, this is the input version first. Let's go with the input version first. Now, how do I actually use that? Why would I use that? Well, what we can do is we can actually go into here and we can go and have a look for a node called set directionality. And this is an animation node, set directionality, and you can see that it sets the directionality data for multi-directional sequence rendering. So what this is doing is it's taking in an animation, which goes into here. It's using an input, so it's feeding in an X and a Y. And if we think about that in terms of our graph, it's an X value for how far along, and it's a Y value for how far up or down. It's taking that value in and it's using that to determine what animation should be played. So what we'd effectively be looking at here is that if we go positive on the Y, it should be moving up. But if we go negative on the Y, it should move us down towards this one. And that's where the 8-way and the 6-way kind of things work, because obviously positive and positive would bring me over here. Negative and negative would bring me over here. And that's where it can actually choose between all these different options. So I can take that move direction that we've just got, plug it in, and what that should mean is that actually my character is now going to default down to here because it's using 0, 0. Okay, so what about if I did the exact same thing, and I'm just going to copy this here. I did the exact same thing into my walking. Well, I can plug in the walking animation, the sequence that we've got, plug it into the output, and I can use that to determine which way I move. So this is going to be D, this is going to be W, this is going to be S. And obviously when we move with that A, we are going to the left. We are playing the left animation. So, we're playing the right animation. So one of the things that we will have to work out here is what do we do if we are going to the left? But for now, I've got down, I've got up, and I've got right. So that works fine for me. I do have the directional elements, which we have to think about, which is the fact that, you know, up and down, I have to make a decision here, maybe with some extra kind of comparisons and considerations. Right is great, up is great, and maybe up and right is fine to be the right animation. What I might need to do is just say, well, actually, if I'm pressing down and right, the right overrides it, and maybe I always move to the down, always move to the right if I'm moving down or up. But you can see that it does handle the four-way movements. Now, what about the option I was just mentioning about directionality? Well, the directionality option is very similar to that. And what we can do here is we can actually go into our event graph, and rather than using the move direction here, I'm just going to break that connection for a sec. What I could do here instead is I could get this velocity value. So I'm going to get that velocity value we just saved here, and I could either split it to get it as X, Y, Z, or I could break it. And the same thing here, I can take this and I can split it, and that gives me the X and the Y. So here what I could do is I could just say, well, let's get our direction, whether we're moving up, down, left, or right. Now this is where we're going to have some problems based on the fact that up and down are flipped over in our world axis here. So maybe you might just need to do a little bit of a rotational value. Maybe that is just going to literally be, we take our Y and we're going to multiply that by -1 and plug that one back into Y. And let's just see what that does. And there you go, up, down, and right. And you can see here what this one's doing is it's basically overriding for me the fact that even though I am moving up and right, it's going to go with the up or the right, and it's basically taking in whatever the first button that is pressed. So down added with right, whereas right added with down. So again, we do need to go into here and maybe add in some extra options that say, if I'm doing one of these, then save it. If not, then do the other one. It's up to you. But you can see here, we've got two options. We've got the velocity directional based option, or we've got the input key based option. And it's completely up to you which one of these you prefer to use. I'm just going to recombine and use this one for a sec. And the last thing I just want to show you with this, before we look at things like flipping over our character, is actually that what I've done here is I've set this directionality in every single one of these. So what I want to look at now is what happens if I have lots and lots of directionality elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one from here and just plug in my walk again. I'm going to go into the walking, so the idle, and I'm going to delete it from there. So actually I'm going to cut it, so I've got a copy of it, and I'm going to go back to my anim graph. And what you can actually do is you can plug this locomotion option into here, and let's plug that in and let's test and see how that one works. And you'll see up, down, and right. It's working exactly the same as we just had. And the reason for that is basically what it does is it applies this move direction onto all of these things after we're pressing these, and it's basically saying whatever animation comes through, it applies it to everything. Now, if we go and look at something like our def is still just going to be the 0 element. So it's like having all of the 4 options. It just uses this one as like our animation node 0. So it just goes, okay, well, I don't have any of the other options, so I'll just use the one. So it is up to you. This one will work. Maybe we need to test it a little bit more with lots and lots of different animations and see what happens. Maybe it's not going to work if you've got different attacks moving in different directions, because obviously this one is based on either velocity and movement or inputs. But just know that you can have it as an overarching kind of thing. If you do have, for example, sprite sheets that have 4 directions or 8 directions for every single one of the examples, you could just put one set directionality into all of them, and that would work. And it would basically take in the animation and apply it to all of them. Okay, so that should give you the ability to now put animation directionality onto your top-down character. And what we'll look at next is how we can actually flip this character over so that they go in different directions. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.